White men are the mental health problem in this country. Jim Crow, white men. Slavery, white men. Segregation, white men. Concentration camps for Asian Americans in the late 30s and early 40s. 1,800 people. How many black people were hung from trees? 8,000. Let me guess. Oh yeah, once again, white men. The gun violence? 98% are men. 84% are white men. U.S. citizens. I see a trend. How about the Middle Passage where 1.2 African Americans died? Oh yeah, once again, white men. Why was the Second Amendment written? Let me think. So black people couldn't have their freedoms. So the white men could once again control them. Who's in the White House? An adjudicated raped felon white man. Wow, I see a trend. But somehow Americans are just begging to blame a trans person, a non-white person. See, what happened to George Floyd is symbolic of what's happening in this country. The white man putting his knee on the neck of a non-white person and sitting there in broad daylight with the balls to say, who's going to stop me? And that's what we're seeing right now. So that's the question that we need to ask ourselves as a fucking country. Who's going to stop them? Because I'm just one person here. Now, I don't know about you, but I got friends and family that are sitting behind the white privilege, and I want nothing to do with them. Not because of who they are, because their lack of action.
Let me tell you about the quietest form of violence I've ever witnessed. And it doesn't announce itself with a gunshot. It doesn't leave bruises you can photograph. It's the kind of violence that whispers comfort while it steals your spine. It promises you the world while teaching you that you'll never have to fight for anything. And in doing so, it makes sure you can't. I'm talking about privilege. And before you click away, before you retreat into that familiar defensive crouch, I need you to hear something that might actually save you from drowning in your own resentment. The system you think is protecting you is actually eating you alive. Are we together? So guys, I want you to stay with me because what I'm about to unpack is not just theory. It is the sociological autopsy of why so many people, particularly white men in Western societies, are angrier, more miserable, and more terrified than ever before, even while holding more institutional power than most of the planet. So guys, this is about the design flaw in dominance itself. I got a couple of clips. I'd like us to watch them, then I'll be back to discuss everything with you.
Can we talk about how miserable white people are for a second? Like, you know that white people are miserable, right? Like, have you ever looked a white person in the eye, even if they're like a big mental health person? You just look deep down and you're like, brother, you are not happy at all. And truly, it breaks my heart. But one reason, I think, one of the main reasons that a lot of white people, a lot of us are really unhappy and miserable is because we lack internal congruence. Now, congruence is a concept we learned early in grad school to help people heal. And congruence is basically internal alignment. Values and actions are on the same page, right? Like, we accept every part of ourselves. We feel peace, security in who we are, congruence. And no matter how hard you try, you can never find internal congruence if you're not congruent with the world around you. If you're not understanding what's real and seeing reality and affirming what's true. So like white people who deny patriarchy and capitalism's negative effect and oppression of the world and genocide that's happening around the world, like that's incongruent with reality. That is going to have an effect on us internally. Because to deny what's happening in real time, we have to deny certain parts of us, certain emotions, certain thoughts that come up. And the more we run for that, the more incongruent and separate we feel, the more dissonance that comes, the more miserable we are. And a lot of times we're not actually dealing with our own pain and our own reality because we're all suffering under capitalism and white supremacy. Like, it affects us different ways in intersectionality, but like it affects us white people too. You don't think a stormtrooper in the fucking Star Wars movies hates his life? You don't think he hates being bossed around all the time? You don't think poor white people living in the empire, like in a city walls, like in a Game of Thrones, like you don't think that they're miserable under it, even though they're not miserable the most? To be congruent inside, to not be miserable anymore, it takes accepting the realities of the world, seeing how those toxic systems affect us, and then moving to actually be congruent.
Just finished a morning run, sweating bullets, but I have to say this while I'm thinking about it. Almost every week, I see someone ask the question, why are white men so angry? And while I cannot begin to expound on the many reasons why that might be, what I can say is this: I view all social problems through a lens of societal systems because as a sociologist, that's what I'm trained to do. And here is the design flaw in systems of privilege, when you build systems of hierarchy and privilege. When you build systems of hierarchy and privilege, the privilege is actually what weakens you. The privilege makes you weak because when you socialize an entire group of people to believe that I exist, therefore I deserve. I exist, therefore I am entitled. I exist, therefore the path of prosperity should be laid out very cleanly ahead of me, and I don't have to work hard, and I don't have to struggle, and I don't have to dig deep. I just have to receive. Meanwhile, you are socializing all other groups to survive with less resources, with less privilege. And so as a byproduct of their survival, they are becoming adaptable, resilient, creative, resourceful. They are developing the muscle for survival that they subsequently turn into systems for success and prosperity. Meanwhile, the privileged group is not developing these systems. And when they start to see the disenfranchised group becoming stronger, gaining opportunities, building systems of success, rather than say, hey, maybe we ought to be doing that too, no. Privilege doubles down. Privilege digs deep into the well of anger and grievance and says, you are the reason why I can't be successful. You are taking opportunities away from me and my children and generations. And so now, rather than develop the muscle of resilience, what I'm going to do now is start taking privileges away from you. And now I'm going to start taking your resources. And now I'm going to start burning your house down in hopes that you will get back to where I think you ought to be, which is underneath me. Not realizing that the more you do that, the more privileges you take away, the more systems of success you try to dismantle, you are only making them more creative, more adaptable, more resilient, and more resourceful. So it becomes this ouroboros, this snake eating its own tail, because the very system that you designed to uplift yourself is actually the one that is putting you far behind, because you never develop the muscle, the work ethic, the resilience, the innovation, and the creativity as the disenfranchised group.
So here's the thing about systems of hierarchy and privilege. They operate like an invisible classroom. You don't see the curriculum, but you're being taught every single day. And the lesson is just simple. You exist, therefore you deserve. Not you worked, therefore you earned. Not you struggled, therefore you grew. Just you exist. You were born into the right zip code, the right skin tone, the right last name, and the the system owes you a smooth path to prosperity. And this is what sociologists call entitlement socialization. It is the quiet programming that tells an entire demographic the game is rigged in your favor. So don't worry about building real skills. Don't worry about resilience. Don't worry about what happens when the world changes, because it won't. Not for you, because your skin tone, for good reasons, it favors you. But here's where it gets even more dark and sinister. Privileges don't just hand you advantages. It doesn't just open doors. What it actually does, and this is the part that will make you uncomfortable, is it removes the necessity for growth. Think about it for a moment. If you never have to struggle, you never build the muscle that struggle creates. If you never face rejection, you never learn to pivot. If you never experience failure, you never develop the grit to get back up. Privilege is a soft cage. It whispers comfort, but it steals resilience. It rewards entitlement while simultaneously ensuring that when the cage door finally opens, when the door stops bending down towards you, you're completely unprepared to survive outside of it. Meanwhile, on the other side of the bars, marginalized communities are doing something completely different. They are grinding. They are adapting to the situations that they are facing. They're making something out of nothing because they have to and they must to, man. Like, survival becomes their teacher, oppression becomes their gymnasium. Like, you have to build some muscles. And here's the brutal irony about this. While privilege is breeding fragility in one group, it's accidentally creating strength in the other group it's trying to keep down. Let us talk about what happens when you're raised in the soft cage now. You grow up believing that success should feel easy, that opportunity should flow naturally, that your default state is winning, and anything less than that is a cosmic injustice. So when life throws you a curveball, when you don't get the job, when someone less qualified in your mind gets promoted, When you suddenly have to compete on equal footing, you don't have the tools to handle it. You don't ask, what can I learn? You ask, who can I blame? You don't think, maybe I need to adapt. You think the system is broken against me. This is fragility in action, and it manifests as anger. Not the righteous anger of the oppressed fighting for liberation, not the productive anger that fuels social movements and injustice. No, this is the terrified anger of someone who's just realized they never learned how to swim and the water is rising. So let me be clear here for a moment. This anger is not about economics, even though that's the story being sold. It's not about economic anxiety or forgotten communities. Those are real issues, yes, but they affect everyone in the working class across all races and gender. The specific rage we are talking about, the kind that leads to radicalization, to hate movements, to desperate attempts to take the country back, that's rooted in something deeper. It's rooted in fear, that is number one. Fear of irrelevance, fear of having to compete without an advantage, of fear of discovering that everything you were told about your inherent superiority was a lie designed to keep you compliant. And when people raised in privilege face that fear, when the illusion cracks, they don't turn inward, they turn outward, they lash out, they look for enemies, they dig deep into wells of grievance and resentment and blame. They say things like, diversity hires are stealing our jobs, feminism destroyed masculinity, immigrants are the problem. And okay, what they really saying is, I was promised an easy path and now I actually have to compete and I'm terrified because I don't know how. Now, here's where this gets cosmically ironic. When privileged groups see marginalized groups starting to succeed, when they see women in leadership, people of color in positions of power, demanding equal rights, their response is not to level up. Their response is to tear down. They try to dismantle affirmative action. They try to defund social programs. They try to legislate people back into boxes. They essentially say, if I can't win on equal terms, then we can't have equal terms. And this is the ouroboros, the snake eating its own tail. Because every time they try to suppress the success of marginalized groups, every time they pass another discriminatory law or cut another program designed to level the playing field, they're doing two things simultaneously. One, they are making themselves weaker. They are doubling down on the soft cage. They are choosing resentment over resilience, grievance over growth. They are ensuring that they never develop the real skill set that competition demands. Number two, they are making their perceived enemies stronger, because the more you try to hold someone down, the more creative, adaptable, and resourceful they become. Oppression, when it doesn't break you, it builds you. So the system designed to maintain dominance is actually creating the conditions for its own collapse. The privileged gets softer, the oppressed gets sharper, and the gap in actual capability, not just access, widens the opposite direction of what the hierarchy intended. This is systemic dysfunction at its finest. A machine designed to elevate one group is actually the machine that's putting them farthest behind. But let's zoom in on the psychological wreckage this creates, because it's not just about competition or capability. It is about internal coherence. There is there is a concept in psychology called congruence. It's when your internal values align with your actions. When what you believe matches what you see in the world. When you can look at reality without flinching and still feel at peace with yourself. You cannot have internal congruence if you are denying reality. And a lot of privileged people are in deep denial. They deny the existence of systemic racism, they deny climate change, they deny wealth inequality, they deny the violence being committed in the name with their tax dollars and the systems they benefit from. This denial was this denial has a cost, or it comes with a cost. Every time you suppress the truth, you suppress a part of yourself, the part that knows something is wrong. You create internal dissonance. You split yourself into the version that speaks and the version that knows, and that split creates misery. This is why, and I'm going to say something controversial here, this is why so many white men, despite holding structural power, are deeply unhappy. Why suicide rates are climbing, why radicalization is spreading, why there is this pervasive sense of emptiness. It is not because they are oppressed. It is because they are lying to themselves. Not just lying, but they're lying a lot to themselves. They're trying to live in a cognitive reality that doesn't match the world around them. And the human psyche cannot sustain that. Eventually, the dissonance becomes unbearable. So they get angrier, they get more extreme, they retreat further into echo chambers and conspiracy theories, anything to avoid the terrifying work of looking at reality and admitting, I have been complicit, I have been asleep, I have been fragile. So where does this leave us, guys? If you're someone who's benefited from privilege, and let us be honest, most of us have benefited from some form of privilege, you have a choice. You can keep playing the game the system taught you. You can keep blaming others for your struggles. You can keep demanding that the world bend back towards you, that history move in reverse, that the cage door close again so you feel safe. Or you can do the hardest thing you've ever done. You can wake up. You can admit that the comfort you were promised came at a cost. To others, yes, but also to you. That the soft cage that made you feel special was also the thing that made you weak. You can choose to build the muscle you never had to build before. To develop resilience, not from a place of victimhood, but from a place of humility. To ask not who took my opportunities, but what real value can I create in a world that's finally becoming fair? Because here's the secret they don't want you to know. Equality is not the end of your story. It is the beginning of your actual potential. When you finally have to compete on equal ground, when you finally have to earn success rather than inherit it, when you finally have to struggle and adapt and grow, that's when you become the person you were always capable of being. The system convinced you that your comfort was your strength. It lied, a greater lie. Your struggle is your strength. Your humility is your strength. Your willingness to face reality, even when it's uncomfortable, even when it implicates you, that is your strength. So let me leave you with this. The snake is eating its tail. Ouroboros. The soft cage is collapsing. The design flaw is in every system of dominance is that it eventually creates the condition for its own irrelevance. You can rage against that. You can fight to rebuild the cage. You can spend the rest of your life angry at a world that's leaving you behind. Or you can opt to do this. You can step out of the cage while you still can. You can develop the tools you were never given. You can choose growth over grievance, because the alternative is not just losing. It is disappearing entirely, swallowed by your own fear, consumed by your own fragility, forgotten by a future you refused to meet on equal terms. The choice has always been yours. The question is, what are you going to do with it? So guys, that is a word for today. Thank you for watching, and I hope to see you in my next